Pampanga is a province in the central Luzon region of the Philippines, lying on the northern shore of Manila Bay. The name La Pampanga was given by the Spaniards. Its creation in 1571 makes it the first Spaniards province on Luzon Island. The town of Villa de Bacolor in the province briefly served as the Spaniards' colonial capital when Great Britain invaded Manila as part of the 7 Years' War. When the Spaniards arrived at Luzon, they found Pampanga to be thickly populated with several towns and that there were 3 castles or forts protecting Pampanga. For better administration and taxation purposes, the Spaniards' authorities subdivided Pampanga into pueblos, which were further subdivided into districts and in some cases into royal and private estates. Francisco Maniago was born in 1630s. Mexico, Pampanga is his hometown since he's lived there most of his life. At first, this place was not named Mexico, according to folk etymology. The original pre-Hispanic name of the village was purportedly Masico, which the Spaniards spelled Mexico. It is claimed that this references an abundance of chico trees. However, chico trees are not endemic to the Philippines and were introduced by the Spaniards from what is now the country of Mexico. Of course, there are some claims differently. The town was founded as a river trading port around 1581. It received immigrants from Mexico since it is recorded that there were thousands of Mexican migrants to the Philippines per year. The Kapampangan people live mainly in the provinces of Pampanga. Farming and fishing were the main industries of the Kapampangan people. So the reasons for go-go economic growth in Pampanga. Tariq Suleiman is the most popular of several names attributed by Kapampangan historians to the individual who led the forces of Macabebe against the Spanish army of Miguel López de Legazpi during the Battle of Bangkasay Channel on June 3, 1571. The Battle of Bangkasay happened because he refused to ally with the Spaniards as Lecangela had done, and decided to mount an attack on the Spaniards, massing his forces at Bangkasay Channel. López de Legazpi got word of the impending attack and launched a preemptive strike. The Macabebe forces were defeated, and Tariq Suleiman himself was killed. In the 1620s, the Spaniards began to explore Taiwan. They found the Dutch army had a base there. The governor of the Philippines wanted to conquer Taiwan from the Dutch. Not only did they plan to explore Taiwan, but they also protected the Portuguese from attacking of the Dutch. The Spaniards also established a shipyard in the province of Camarines in Luzon in 1628. Then the governor of the Philippines launched an attack on Jolo. A force from Cebu of 200 Spaniards and 1,600 Filipino allies landed on Jolo on April 22, 1628. This was burned, along with a large quantity of rich and many boats. After experiencing a series of wars, the economy and the number of soldiers were lacking. Spain wasn't going to provide economy and soldiers to the governor. The governor only shifts the target to the Kapampangan people. Since 1610, there has been bad blood between the Spaniards and the Dutch in Batalan for years. Because of 80 years of war. It was an armed conflict in the Habsburg Netherlands between disparate groups of rebels and the Spanish government. There was a 12 years truce between the two countries in 1609, though they didn't cease fire in Asia. The military upkeep and decreased trade had put Spain and the Dutch Republic under financial strain. Repairing the battleships, soldiers, and equipment were provided from the Philippines. These wars wasted money and much human power. There were 3 times conflicts in Batalan. They were in 1610, 1617, and 1624 individually. All the battles were won by the Spanish. Farming and fishing are the 2 main industries in Pampanga. Major products include rice, corn, sugarcane, and tilapia. The economy is buoyant. The thriving industry in Pampanga, too. Handcrafted goods are of very high quality. Wood industry, either. Not only did the economy boom, but the warriors of the Kapampangan people were also the toughest. They are smart and good at analysis and teamwork. As a result, the governor of the Philippines always taxation and conscription in Pampanga. It affected the residents' living. Given their previous failures to disrupt the Spanish Empire's trade in Asia, the Dutch decided to seize the Philippines, feeling certain that they were strong enough to carry out the attacks. After they conquered the Spanish settlement in the north of Taiwan in 1642, the Dutch became increasingly eager to attack Manila because they knew the city lacked strong defenses and couldn't receive enough aid from Spain. So the battles of La Naval de Manila began in 1646. The Dutch naval had the absolute advantage of 35 new ships and an operation plan, and the Spaniard naval had only 8 old ships. Finally, the Spaniards neutralized a Dutch fleet of 3 separate squadrons. It caused heavy damage to Dutch squadrons. Then the Dutch abandoned their invasion of the Philippines. The result of the war was sweet, though it was not only a contribution of the Spaniards. Many Filipinos provided their living beings and effort. Filipino with the Spaniards defeated the Dutch on the beach of Zamboanga. Then, Filipinos with the Spaniards also defended the Manila. In Pangasinan, Filipinos didn't accept the recommendation of the Dutch for betraying the Spaniards. These efforts of Filipinos didn't get equity rewards. Almost all the costs of the war were paid by Filipinos. Filipinos even made the most sacrifice. However, Filipino unexpected that the notice of Polo y Servicio, Band Ala, and burdens of tribute came one by one from the Spaniards. Polo y Servicio was imposed on the local indigenous male population in the Philippines since the late 16th century. It was the forced labor system without compensation imposed upon the local population in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period. The activities that have to be performed may include cutting trees for timber and building galleon trade ships, churches, government buildings, roads, and bridges. It contributed to the construction of several churches and government projects in the Spanish colonial period, such as Angeles Church, Pagsanjan Arch, Maribajac Church, and Maligan Long Bridge. The Band Ala system was established in the Spanish colonial period. Spanish authorities in the Philippines implemented it, requiring native Filipino farmers to sell their goods to the government. Not only did an annual enforced sale and requisitioning of goods such as rice, but Spaniards also coerced to sell their products to the government at very low prices. Polo y Servicio has crippled the ability of the local male population to feed themselves and their families, which caused hunger. In particular, the system affected the agricultural sector because of the lack of male farmers, which resulted in low harvests. During that time, Pampanga drew most of the attention of the Spanish religious orders because of its relative wealth. They also bore the burden of more tribute. Because of Polo y Servicio, they were made to work for 8 months under unfair conditions and were not paid for their labor. Tax systems were also scary. The 18 to 50-year-old males had to pay 8 reals if they were carpenters, blacksmiths, bricklayers, tailors, workers in road construction, and shoemakers. Eventually, with the cedula, Spain replaced tributo with cedula in the 19th century, which allowed them to keep track of the people who could pay taxes. Sabiniano Manrique de Lara was the Spanish Governor-General of the Philippines from 1653 to 1663, the third longest-serving Governor-General during the Spanish colonial era. Some disadvantages happened in Spain before Governor Sabiniano Manrique de Lara was in office. The revolts in Portugal and Catalonia, both in 1640, weakened Spain's strength appreciably. Soon, Spain finally was forced to recognize the independence of the Dutch provinces, which had been among its most valuable possessions. The reason for the loss was Spain could no longer afford the expense of the conflict. Then, there was a new threat from the northern Philippines. Coxinga's forces raided several towns in the northern Philippines. Spain's decline, Dutch pirates, and the threat of Coxinga made the governor prolong the time limit of the Polo y Servicio system. Under Polo y Servicio, men in Pampanga worked as timber cutters for 8 months, which led to low agricultural harvests. Their patience was put to the limit and they signified their intention to revolt by setting their campsite on fire. They chose Francisco Maniago, the chief from Mexico, Pampanga, as their leader. Soon, they became an army. Most of them are Kapampangan people. Under Maniago, the revolting group closed the mouths of the rivers with stakes to disrupt commerce. They also sent letters to chiefs in provinces outside of Pampanga, asking them to join the revolt against Spain. Then Maniago's army set a base in Pampanga. They planned to wait for the other provinces' revolts. They wanted to unite the different armies to attack the Spaniards in Manila. The Maniago revolt started a much bigger and even bloodier revolt in Pangasinan. This battle was led by a man named Andres Malong, who had heeded the call of Maniago to revolt against the Spaniards. The fight soon began, and because the Spaniards were busy fighting against the Dutch, they were badly depleted by the Kapampangans. After understanding the situation is not good for him, Governor General Sabiniano Manrique de Lara thought of the wisdom of Baltasar Gracian. Begin with another's to end with your own. It means to retreat in order to advance. So he planned a strategy. He communicated with some chiefs of Pampangan by some methods. He promised the Spaniards would compensate for their loss and the chiefs had to stop revolting. After hearing news of a Kapampangan chief siding with the Spaniards, Maniago and his forces arranged for a meeting with Governor General Sabiniano Manrique de Lara, too. They gave their conditions to end their rebellion. Maniago asked for changing the Polo y Servicio, band ala system, and burdens of tribute. Then, appeased and satisfied with the conditions of the agreement, the Governor General accepted the demands, after which Maniago and his forces gave up the rebellion.